So welcome back to my channel. This is Dom and I'm in foggy Atlanta. Oh my goodness. I always thought, I'd never been to Atlanta, Georgia before. Always thought it was going to be really hot. Excuse me, but it's not. Look at that. It was raining yesterday. It's very cold and it's freezing fog out there. It's Sunday morning. First night, never sleep well coming over this side of the pond. So inspired by Ken at Miniature Wargame Warriors channel, he showed himself doing lots of painting and stuff when he was out on a business trip in the UK, and was even talking about taking, I think jokingly, taking a 3D printer with him. I didn't go quite that far. I brought these with me because I knew there's going to be mornings like this when I've got up really crack of dawn early, had some breakfast, and I'm just waiting for my meetings to start. So I might as well do something useful. So I thought I'm going to put appropriate movie on the iPad and start making these up for my upcoming Stalingrad project, because the Stalingrad supplement for Bolt Action's on its way. What better than 40 Soviet winter troops would be useful. There we go, ready to get going. I've just got Inglorious Bastards on the iPad ready to go. This is the box set you get. This is the Warlords 40 figures they give you in this pack. I've got my knife here, got some pliers, a couple of pots of different types of glue. Oops, can't see with the camera. This is my phone actually. All the bases ready to go. There's the weapon sprues. So I worked out there's 19 weapons and they give you 3 sprues. So yeah, so it's 57 possible weapons with 40 figures. So that gives you a bit of flexibility. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sprues of infantry. Each one of them, sorry, I'm having to hand hold this because I didn't bring my tripod obviously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 on each? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, there's 8 on there. And there's 5 of them. That's right, 40 figures. So I'll crack on and get something done. So there you go, a couple of early mornings due to time differences and inability to sleep. Managed to get this box of infantry done. So there's the officer and his bagman, shall we say, anti-tank rifleman, sniper, 3 LMG guys with their attendants. Now the only thing I couldn't fix was the tripods for those machine guns, because I didn't bring any tweezers and it's really hard to stick things down without tweezers, I find. There's did 8 men as submachine gunners, and then 2 squads of riflemen, 10 men each, and that's my 40 figures from that winter box. What a pain in the arse it is to stick figures together. I hate it. Oh my goodness, I really hate it. I'd forgotten how much I hate it. But they come together okay, and there's some nice animation. So next up, I'm going to have to paint some of them, I guess. So here we are back at home at painting HQ, so to speak, and I've done the first squad of these Russians and quite pleased with how they came out. Done some basing, used some of those winter tufts I had in my box, lot of contrast paint used on these figures just for speed. And you know, I thought I'd just show you how I do them. So bear with, this is not supposed to be a de facto how to paint, but it's how I choose to paint and how I cheat, and may answer some of the questions for some of you folks who wonder how I managed to churn them out so quickly. So let's start. Okay, so I have the next squad of 10 ready to go. They've been base coated with, or undercoated with this plastic soldier army spray. Do you know what? I don't know what this colour is. The what it was has rubbed off, but I seem to remember this was like Russian tank green or something like that. Anyway, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Greens, browns, I use sand on a couple of these ones, I've got sand on them. Doesn't matter, as long as it's sort of a muted tone, I think it works best, in my humble opinion. So they've been undercoated. You can see this is the next 10 ready to go, and I'm just going to paint some skin tone first of all. I always like to start with skin. I don't know why, just has become force of habit from very early days. I'm going to use this one. This is Contrast Guilliman's Flesh, which I really like as a base flesh tone. So I'm not going to subject you to all of these, but I do batch painting. So we'll start with this fella. I'll show you how I do it. Now some of these guys have got gloves on. Oh, I just see a bit of flesh in there. Hang on. Back in the mo. Okay, wasn't sure whether that was fleshing or a bit of glue. Anyway, let's try a different guy because that one hasn't got. So this guy hasn't got any gloves on. So I'm just going to slap it. Oops. Let's try this. Make sure I'm showing it off. There we go. Slap it on. Doesn't have to be 100% accurate. Just around there. Now you'll see the green underneath is coming through, but don't worry about that for now. This is just the first layer. There we go. Done. I'll do the rest now. There you go. Took all of about 7 or 8 minutes just to do the undercoat or do the flesh tone for the first 10 figures. Now some of them have got mittens on. This guy's got half mittens. Some of them got face wraps because that's the sort of figures they are. But that's the first stage done. So next up, should have been prepared. Huh. So next up I'm going to do the guys who are wearing the sort of quilted armour. This sort of, yeah. So just to have this sort of effect. So for that I'm going to use another contrast paint. This is Nazdreg Yellow, which has a really nice sort of clear, mustardy, pukey yellow. Not pukey, yeah, that sort of, whatever. So I've got 1, 2, 3 figures with this on. So let's just whack on these. So again, skin tone's finished, is dried because the contrast paints also dry very, very quickly. So I'm just going to literally slap it on. Not worrying too much at the moment about where it goes, as long as the padding gets a good dose. This guy's got different types of trousers on. He hasn't got the padded trousers on, what I mean. He's also got a bedroll that goes right around his middle. See there? So that will all be left to later. Slap it all over, and again you can see the yellows, the green is coming through from underneath, but don't worry about that for the moment. That will all disappear as we continue. There you go. I think we've got all of him. So I'll do the others. So you go, that's 3 done. I've got another 7 more in this squad to paint up. So I'm going to, these guys have all got great coats on. So I'm going to do 3, I think. Yeah, let's do 3. Using this Warfront Winter Grey paint, because I think that's a nice shade, and at the end of the day they're in a winter coat. So I've got some on my palette down here. Just going to make sure that's mixed up. and we're going to slap that. Now this stuff doesn't go on quite as easily as the contrast paints, but even so we can have a fair old slap away. Slap away, which slap away. There we go. They've also got mittens on, so I'm going to do the mittens in the same colour because they would tend to be, looking at the pictures I've seen, they would tend to be grey mittens. There you go, just slapping that all over. Don't need to be terribly accurate. I mean, obviously try not to get over too much other than the area you're aiming for. This guy is kneeling down, so he's got his coat is all rocked up. Make sure we get down every area that should be painted. Quite watered down, this paint, so the green's coming through quite a bit more watered down than I probably should have done, but never mind. Helps with the flow of the paint, and it's not really going to matter terribly. I think he's largely done. Oh, still got that mitten there, I haven't done. There we go. So I'll be back when I've done the others. Right, so that's the 4 of them done. Just done their grey coats and also the mittens. And I've also gone on to the other figures that I haven't painted yet and done their mittens. So that's 7 down. I've got 3 more I'm going to do, or 3 more with great coats. Now, I just, for me, I like a bit of variety in my figures. I think, you know, particularly late war, you know, they would have worn pretty much anything they want to wear, anything to get their hands on, frankly. So I'm going to use this contrast paint. This is Gore Grunter Fur, which is a sort of browny, mid-brown colour, I guess, something like that. And we're going to use this one in here. Yeah, that's the one I want. Just checking I got the right paint. Let's start with this figure. So I think his mittens are dry. And again, same process. Oops, don't get too close, Dom. Just going to slap it all over. Straight from the bottle with the contrast paints. I'm sure you can use a medium to water them down, but personally they work fine for me straight out of the pot. Just love the way these contrast paints go on. Coverage is superb. Also, they have a viscosity which allows them to run into the little gaps. So much easier. I find doing them in a batch like this much more satisfying because I can see the unit coming together. Also, when they all have different sort of, even when they have the same colours, it just gives me a little bit more variety as I'm painting. There we go. He'll do. I'll do the other 3. Back in a mo. So there you go. That's the 3 of them done. So basically now we have a squad of 10 down here who have all had their basic top coats done. Now the guys with the great coats, you can't really see their trousers, so that makes life easier, but basically that's their top coats, if you like, done. So I'm now going to do their boots. Now again, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to use the same colours, and I found that this contrast paint, the Seigel brown, is a really dark, almost black brown, which I think is ideal for the sort of felt boots that they would have worn later in the war. Now bear in mind these are winter warriors, so you know, you can choose whatever colour you like for your summer guys, black or brown or whatever they were supposed to be. But for me, because these boots that they're wearing are quite chunky, they're obviously fur boots. Let me show you. That one's not there. See, they're actually quite big boots, so I think they're fur boots, so I'm going to treat them as such and use this colour paint. So again, simple, slap it all over. Try not to get it on the grey, on the great coats. Should really have timed all this, because probably what, 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe tops. Like that. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so they're all done. All 10 of them had their boots done. You can see it's a really blacky brown. Now one thing I did notice as I was doing this was that a couple of these guys have got trousers on, so I need to do those. So I'm going to just use the conventional Russian uniform greeny brown. I guess a khaki colour could do, anything like that really. And I'm just going to do these guys, there's 2 of them, just do their trousers. So get a little bit more careful now. I don't really want to go over the boots again. The thing is, I find because I've done the undercoat green, that even if I miss a little bit in the shading phase, the green will conceal the fact I've missed a bit. In fact, I was tempted just to leave the trousers the same undercoat. There we go. He's done. Come together nicely. There's one more, and we'll do that now. Okay, so there you go. There's the 2 guys who had different colours trousers done. Now next up, I would normally do the hair of my figures, but on these guys there's a couple of guys who've got hair showing, but most of them don't. So I'm also going to do the guys who've got face wraps on. Now for the face wraps, I'm going to use this Brain Matter beige. Any kind of off-white I think will do. I think that will help. And let's just put a bit more on the palette here. I have transferred to a smaller brush. This is a 1. Sorry, I was using a 1. This is a 0. And you can see just up. You can see just up on here. They've got this guy's got a face wrap. Now, I've mentioned this before, I think, on other videos. Don't worry if the colours are a little bit bright. We're going to use washes which will deaden them down, so actually I quite like using fairly bright colours. Comparatively so. I'm going to use bright pink or anything like that on a historic figure. So you can see that his face wrap is done. So I'll be back after I've done all the others. Okay, so that's all the face wraps done on these figures, those that had them. There was only one guy with any kind of hair showing, which was this guy, so I've just used a brown colour for that. So next up I'm going to do their headgear. Now I've got Some guys wearing these sort of fur hats that the Russians are renowned for. Oops. Some guys wearing tin helmets. There's a couple of guys wearing, can't think what they're called, sort of felt, I want to say berries, but they're not. So I'm just going to use a variety here. So the guys who are wearing these berries, for the sake of argument, I'm just going to use that Russian camo, Russian grey green, and just slap that on next. Try not to get on the wrappings. I'm also going to use the same colour on at least one of the guys wearing a helmet. Right, so that's two guys with the sort of fezzy hats on, one guy with the green helmet on. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do another guy with a helmet on as well. Okay, just for the sheer hell of it. What the hell? Let's live on the edge. There we go. So, just clean the brush. The other two helmet guys, I'm going to use a sort of whitey colour. In fact, I'm going to use the same brain matter beige because I think it's kind of nice colour without being too white. And I'm going to use it because they used to use a fair bit of sort of wash on helmets and things just to try and add the camo on. So I'm making sure this is quite watered down because I want the green to come through that's underneath. I mean, I could use I've seen techniques of weathering with hairspray and stuff and then rub it through, but you know what, I can't be bothered. That works well enough, and when I've got a wash on that, that'll show through really nicely. So let's just do the other guy. Again, don't worry too much about getting underneath the helmet. I used to be really meticulous about getting around under here. But I find, again, I don't really need to worry. There you go, that's two with helmets. So I've now got the ones with the sort of fur caps and or somebody will tell me what the proper name is for those Russian hats. And just really to break up the colours as much as anything else, I've got I'm going to use, what am I going to use? So I'm going to use another contrast paint, Wild Wood, which is quite a darkish brown, and I'm going to use it on the guys that have the more sort of Snoopy type helmet hats on. Oops, get enough on the paintbrush there. Quite dark colour this. There you go. Back when the rest are done. Right, so there's the fourth one done. So basically we have here largely completed the 10, let's pan in a bit better, there we go. Largely completed the 10 figures in this squad. Next thing to do is the detail. Okay, so we're getting towards the meat and potatoes of the job. Next thing I'm going to do is this bedroll that some of the figures have around their middle. Again, I'm just going to be using brain matter beige. Just any kind of off-whitey colour I think works well for these. Oops, a bit more too much paint on that brush. And I'm just going to slap that all over. It's like the infantry equivalent of the log on the back of a Russian tank, these things, isn't it? Again, I mentioned before, I don't mind when they look a little bit bright, because they're going to be toned down by the washes anyway. So starting from a brighter colour means that when they're reduced down in colour by the darkness of the wash, they look better. So that's them. Let's do the other one. I think there's one more. Yeah, one more. I'll do that. I'm back in a minute. Right, so that's them done. Next up, I'm going to do the wood of the guns and also the backpacks and belts. I'm going to use this model colour mahogany brown. Again, it's a Vallejo. Again, as I said, just slightly brighter than you might otherwise expect. I always find that's the best way to go because it's going to get dumbed down by the washes at the end. So I would rather start, oops, missed that entirely, rather start with a brighter colour and then work back from there. Trying to be careful not to get on everything else. I've just got it on his, okay, that's right, that's okay. Got it on the flap of his cap there, but managed to rub it off before it's set, so that's good. That's him. He's got some little pouches there, and a belt. Other side, the belt pouches there. Backpack. Gotta have somewhere to put your sandwiches, don't you? Now, oh, he has got a strap that comes there, so we'll just do that. Just see the strap. Another tip when painting, I'm sure most of you do this, but make sure you've got a bright light when you're doing it, because it can be really hard to spot the little imperfections, little things you need to fill in. I use one of these true light kind of desk lights. I'll show it in a minute maybe. So there you go, that's that. I'll be back when I've done all the others. So I mentioned the sort of light you need to have. This is the one I use. I've had this for years. This is Ott Light. It's one of these ones that has a, there you go, shuts off like that, and it's a modelling light. Very powerful, really good, very simple to use. I use it for painting and also for doing some videos because it gives that sort of real proper light, which makes the figures pop when you're painting them, and also makes them stand out when you're videoing them. So there you go. Okay, so that's all 10 done. Just knocking over a paint. So we're getting towards the end now. You can see the colours, the painting isn't absolutely perfect, but don't worry about that, we're going to cover that up later. Next thing I'm going to do is do the gun barrels and the bayonets, if they have them, of any of the rifles, also the triggers and the bolts. And I'm just going to use, God, I've had this one ages, this is gunmetal. Don't know where I got this one from. Game Colour it's called, but anyway, doesn't matter. And I am going to, this is a guy with an automatic rifle. Let's just see the trigger there, and the barrel on this one goes right to the end. That's a stupid thing to say, Dom, you know what I mean. There's a sort of I don't know what the technical term is, sort of like where the aerating bit of the barrel is. I'm talking absolute bullshit. I'm just going to run the paintbrush across the top. Hopefully that's showing up, of this rifle. Not too much paint on there, but just enough to leave a sort of a line. I'm just going to touch up, there's a bolt there. There we go, don't want to do too much. Check the other side. There's the stock. Not stock, that's the ammunition. Just do that. Ventilation, that's what I mean, ventilation along the end of the barrel on this gun. Just run a lightly loaded brush down the top there. I can see where I've slopped onto his finger there, but never mind. We'll sort that out in a bit. So there you go. Actually, I don't think that was the ammunition. I think that was his finger I just coloured in. We'll touch that up in a bit. So that's one. I'll just show you how to do it on the more conventional rifleman. So here we go again. There's the trigger and ammo. His bayonet comes down to there. So we'll just quickly slap paint on there. Again, I don't do every last line because the dry brushing is going to pick up a lot of that. All I'm doing, remember this is wargame standard painting. We're not trying to get these into, you know, winning art competitions or anything like this. This is just to get the figures on the table to the point where you're quite happy with them and they look reasonable. Oops. So there you go. So you can see there's a I don't know whether you can, I will fill it in, but there's a little bit of a like a metal loop there. Sometimes I don't bother doing those because it stands out when you dry brush them. So there you go. So that's two done. I'll do the rest and back. Okay, so there we are. That's all the gun barrels done. The bayonet's done. These guys have got like a folded bayonet. So that's done. I've done the if they've got the automatic rifles have got ammunition clips. So I've done those, and also triggers where you can see them. Haven't been too perfect on them, but that doesn't matter. I also went back and touched up a couple of the mainly the mittens seem to get affected by where I'd sort of slopped brown on, so I just went around and touched up a few of the bits of grey that were painted on, but pretty much that is this. Now what I could do next, and I'm not actually going to do on these figures because there's so little flesh showing, is often what I'll do at this stage is just go and put a little tiny bit of normal Vallejo, what's this one, medium flesh on. But because I'm going to darken these down, I'm not going to bother with these. But yeah, that's another way just to make it pop slightly. And if you've got a figure that's got a lot more skin showing, that's a good way to do it. You just literally put that over the raised areas, almost a dry brush, but slightly more than that, and that helps that pop. So what I'm going to do next, I've got some of this Citadel Nuln Oil shade. You can use that, or it's the other one I use most often, the Army Painted Dark Tone. I just picked some of this up when I was in America actually, and just thought I'd give it a go and to see what it was like, and it's exactly the same. So straight from the bottle, I'm not going to water it down in any way. Good healthy amount on the brush, and slap it all over. Just making sure we get everywhere with this. That's what I mean about doing things slightly darker colours, slightly lighter colours, because this is going to darken it down. Try not to let it pool too much in certain places. Like it was in danger of pooling a lot on that crease of that grey coat there. I want a little bit of pooling, but not so much that it kind of looks like it's just been slathered all over, which is kind of what I've done anyway. It's a bit brown there. Missed a bit. Never mind, I'll go back and do that in a bit. Actually, it'll probably disappear when I do the dry brushing at the end. Slopped on the trail. So there you go. That's that one done. She'll do them all now. Back in a mo. Right, so here we go. They're all finished. They're pretty much dry. In fact, they are completely dry. The wash has darkened them down considerably. Also got into the recesses of the figure's offer. So this one with the padded jackets, you can see the stripes have come out quite nicely on the pajama tops. So now I'm just going to base them. Showed you how I do this before, but just a quick recap. Here we have a tub of, now I think this is City Rubble, I forget exactly which one it is. This is Luke's APS basing material. I wrongly said in the video I did, link above, that he uses some kind of grouting to set it. And actually he replied, Luke, to say no, he doesn't, it's just really finely ground, which is why it sticks so well. But whatever, it works. So I've got a tub of that there. I've got some PVA glue, an old dodgy brush. What we're going to do, slap it all over. Slather the base with PVA. Try not to slather yourself. Although, is it me? I quite enjoy picking the glue off afterwards. Weird fantasy. Just me. Okay. Don't judge me. Right. That's one. That's him. Just brush there. And just into the pot of magic stuff. So I take it out the bag and put it in pots, then I can just add it in and shake it around. So there you go. And I shall do all 10 of them and leave them to dry, and then we'll be back for the next stage. Okay, so they're all done. I forgot one little step, which is on a number of them, ones for the caps and also the fur hats, they have little red star marks. So I'm just going to go back while the basing is drying to add those in. Just doesn't need much, just a little splotch of red. And then we'll be back for the next stage once everything. Okay, so they are pretty much dry. The bases still need a little bit longer to firm up, but they're good enough for me to handle. So the next stage, which is almost the end now, I'm going to dry brush, and I'm using Iraqi sand from Vallejo. As always with dry brushing, you put a bit on a big brush, rub most of it off, and then just work it over the, oops, a bit too much on there, work it all over the figure to accentuate, that's a nice word, accentuate the raised bits. It's basically a glorified way of doing shading without the bother of doing the shading. There you go. So you can see that. And we'll do the rest. Do another one here just to show. So the crucial thing is to get enough but not too much. So there we go. They have all dried. I have sprayed them with a matte varnish. They look a bit shiny under this light, but they are matte varnished. And now the bases are pretty rock solid. So next stage is to make them look more wintry. So I have for that a big tub of Woodland Scenics soft flake snow powder. It's like a powder. It's weird. So I picked this up in a hobbycraft shop. I've also got a couple of different tufts. There's the winter tufts, and this one is actually scorched tuft, but it's a nice dark colour, which I think works really nicely as a counteract. Got some cheap super glue. I think this came from the pound shop because I'm going to use a lot of it, so got loads of it in. Can't remember how many you got for £1, but quite a lot. But about 8 figures will use us all up. So I'm just spreading that really comprehensively all over the base. And where there's, on this one there isn't, but where there's bigger rocks coming through, I kind of ignore them and don't do that. So they poke through the result. Then I've got one of these big fluffy tufts there. Oops, try not to stick it to my finger. And just for a bit of contrast, we'll have one of the darker ones as well. There we go. And now I'm just going to take, oops, all this snow. It is snow, it's not anything malicious, anything naughty that one might put up their nose. Cover the base. Let the super glue do its thing. There you go. That's the base done. So I'll be back when I've done them all. So there you go. That's the basing done. That's the figures done. There's a few tufts there, and you can see I've tried to keep the effect to be sort of like early snow or the thawing snow. So there's tufts poking through. There's a bit of ground poking through the bases, but I think the effect's pretty good. And you can see that really didn't take long at all to do those figures. In real time, I don't know how long. I should have kept timer of the how long it took me to do those 10 figures. But bearing in mind it's now a few days since I came back from Atlanta, let me show you what I got done for this army and this project using this technique. So overall it's been a pretty productive 10 days since I came back from Atlanta. There's the infantry squad that I showed you painting. There's another one. There's an officer type group. There's a couple of sniper groups. Heavy mortar with his spotter. We've got a medium machine gun down here. This is a squad of the compulsory assault machine gunners with the body armour on them. What have we got here? These are scouts, group of submachine gunners, a whole load of LMGs here, mandatory dog, mine dogs, or whatever they're called, explosive dogs, anti-tank rifle, and of course a truck, and BA6 I think that one is. All been done in the last 10 days. I'm really pleased with the productivity. I really have cranked them out, as you can see. Plenty of the project. 10 days, don't know how many figures that is, but it's the whole box, 40 figures that was in the winter box, plus some other assorted figures that I had in the pile I've been looking to do for ages. All been done with this winter theme. I've got a few more to do, got a tank or two to do. I've got, I'll probably crack open another box of infantry and do some more, because probably 20 riflemen isn't going to cut it. But you know what, I'm quite pleased how they've all come out. And they all have the winter theme, and they all come out pretty reasonable for my cheaty approach to paint. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed how I painted my latest project, and sort of some tips on how I do speed painting and how you can crank out an awful lot of figures very rapidly. Oh, there's a good song. Hello, mate. It works. It delivers a tabletop quality figure that doesn't take forever to do. And that's why I like doing it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. and I will see you again soon with more cheaty videos. This is Dom signing out.